So, what does the nation really think of Trump's historic first 100 days in office? Well, if you're part of the rapidly dwindling audience of the legacy media, you would think that President Trump is in a polling freefall. Even Rupert Murdoch's New York Post got in on the act, running with the headline President Trump battered by brutal polls that show his approval sinking, including one revealing the lowest ratings since World War II. And then, of course, they proceeded to highlight a litany of polls from the very same pollsters that for months told us that Kamala Harris was going to win in a landslide. So, what on earth is going on here? Well, joining us to bring clarity in the midst of this polling confusion is the one and only Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen. Rasmussen was one of the single most accurate pollsters for 2024. So, for example, take a look at this Real Clear Politics polling aggregate here. You'll see that dispersed among the litany of blue dots that all told us that Kamala was leading, you'll see periodically a couple of red spots, lonely red spots there. That's with Trump polling at +2. That was Rasmussen. That's Mark Mitchell, and he's here with us today to give us a sense of what's really going on with these polls and with Trump's current support. So, Mark, welcome. Great to have you back, my friend.
Yeah, great to be here. That is my favorite screenshot ever. and behind the scenes, I was getting an ulcer as I couldn't go to sleep. What is it? Is it me? Am I the only one? Am I in Crazyville? No, people don't like Kamala Harris. The Democrat media was just shilling for her. That's what was happening.
And her own internal pollsters admitted eventually we were never ahead. We never had her ahead in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin, like you said. And I remember we had you on the show back then, and you had that kind of humble sort of like, I don't know what they're seeing, but as far as we're seeing, it's Trump +2, Trump +1.5, and a huge congrats to you for being one of the rare pollsters more concerned about accuracy than clickbait headlines. So congrats, that's huge.
Well, I do my fair share of clickbait headlines. I've been guilty of that, but I'll tell you, I mean, it was a learning experience. I came from outside the industry and I clowned pretty much everybody. And it really comes down to polling is commoditized, but honest polling is not. And quite frankly, people hate us. They don't want Rasmussen reports in business. We ask uncomfortable questions about vaccines, about people in power, right, about the ways that the government's been weaponized, and about economic populism and all this stuff. There's a really easy way to put us out of business. Journalists, do your job. Just do your job. And then I won't have to ask questions. I could ask questions about what flavor ice cream do you like better? That would be what we'd be polling about if people in power were held accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, case in point, we had this, what was it, an ABC Ipsos poll, I believe, that has Trump apparently polling worse than any person in the history of humanity. Well, I'm exaggerating just a little bit there. I guess in 80 years. Is that what you're finding? And if not, what on earth is going on there?
It's an info op. Okay. So here's, I mean, I don't think your audience needs a wake-up call, but here's the wake-up call. It's already World War III, and it's an information war. And if you're hearing a headline, you're getting shot at by the information war. They're taking their swipes at you. And there are a lot of squishy soft targets because the 18 to 29-year-old women, for instance, who didn't really like Joe Biden, they fell for Brat Summer. They became 25 points more Kamala Harris leaning. And so it works. And this is all they have. They don't have a lot of Democrat political power right now. And you thought back in November, maybe they would worry about their profit motive and their bottom lines. They're not. They're just going to keep shilling for the establishment. And that's really what it is. That headline, I joked about it. I think it's actually probably correct. I think they probably wrote that headline a month or two ago and coordinated this up.
Yeah.
Now, they always lean left of me. There are always a few points left. Like, listen, Trump doesn't have a great approval as compared to historical situations, but we're also on the cusp of a civil war. And that has way more to do to it than actual Trump performance, because right direction polling is the highest it's ever been on our polling in 20 years. And, he got an increasing share of the vote. So people obviously like what they saw the first time around, but he's just not going to get a 60% approval rating. It's never going to happen until our problems get fixed. So anyways, they lean 3, 4, 5 points to the left of me, especially the cabal, the ones that I think perpetrated this operation: CNN, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, Reuters, Ipsos. Fox News was in there, Fox News, NPR, all of those names. And they're normally 3, 4, 5 points to the left of me. All of a sudden, last weekend, they were 12 points to the left of me, just out of nowhere. They all dumped polls like they were rushing to get a homework assignment in. And you could see it in the Real Clear Politics aggregate. It blows out to a Trump -7 and change when it had been 3, 4 points a week or two before. And that week or two was when the stock market was blowing up.
Right.
So clearly just this nasty, disgusting, cynical, mean girls playbook attempt to try and convince people that, okay, well, they don't think he's a Russian asset. We failed trying to convince people he was racist. He's not, a convicted felon. None of that worked. And so now it's just, well, he's not cool. Like people don't like him. It's sad, really.
I just saw it in real time. So the newly elected Liberal Prime Minister of Canada, Liberal the party and ideologically, Mark Carney is in the Oval Office, and it was. I don't know if you got to see it, Mark. I mean, it was Trump was roasting him. I mean, he doubled down on the 51st state thing, and he was just saying, "Look, you're already basically a state. We subsidize you, we protect you. You're running this $100 billion trade surplus on us, and you bar our dairy products." And he's going on it. We don't want your cars. We don't want your steel. That. Yeah, he's going on and on. And Carney is having to take this. He has no choice because they have everything to lose if Trump blows his gasket with it. What are the headlines from that meeting? Mark Carney tells Trump Canada's not for sale. I mean, we're talking New York Times, Washington Post, AP, Reuters, boom, boom, boom. New York, Canada's not for sale. So it's like, I mean, it's just so obvious that they've already written the headline before they even had the meeting, But I have to tell you, one of the things that for me, what sealed the deal with this info war here is that when these slew of polls came out, what was it, like the Sunday before the 100th day, even if we were to take them all at face value, even if we were to take them like, okay, you guys are the gold standard, they're not in a polling vacuum. Trump's polls may suck, but then you look at the Democrats polling and it super sucks. And it just seems to be that's sort of the giveaway here. The legacy media is focused on completely on Trump's supposed bad polling, all the while completely ignoring the Democrats' apocalyptic polling. That just suggests to me that we're dealing with a deliberate attempt to paint and frame Trump in a negative light.
Oh, they dropped it right into the Sunday news cycle. And I didn't even start talking about how bad the crosstabs are. New York Times sampled 17%, didn't votes not sures from the fall. Their independent sample was 17 points pro-democratic. But ABC had Trump upside down on the issue of immigration by 6 points. It's like Looneyville. None of this reflects reality. But I mean, that's what happens in an information war. This is shock and awe. And there are, again, squishy targets that it works on. And there's 35% of the country this is red meat for, and they're not going to watch the clips. They're just going to let this wash over like some religious catechism. I've done my Hail Trump's Evils today or whatever, right? That's what this is. It really is two different Americas, and they've cultivated Trump hate as a religion. I predicted this back in the fall. The cult was going to get smaller, but cultier. And I don't know how that's going to help them win elections in the future. All they have is he's still living in their head, rent free. Yeah. 10 years later. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that's what Castellanos was saying, that whenever you start to see a party in decline, it inevitably ends up deferring to its most radical kind of core, because they're the only ones that are giving them the time of day. And then you see them for who they really are. And then that just even alienates them from the consensus even farther, which means they double down all the more on it's just that 80-20 doom loop.
Gotta feed that outrage machine.
Gotta feed the outrage machine. I want to nerd out a little bit with you on polling here, because I think you're the only pollster that polls presidential approval daily, and you've been doing that for a couple of decades, and you just have this massive swath of data. And I'm just curious, how is in your view, how is polling change over the course of that time period? What I'm getting at here is Jason Corley over at Quantum Insights. He had a really good piece, and Quantum Insights is I consider them, there's a handful of pollsters. I don't even look at the other ones. Of course, you're on the top, and Quantum is there, and Atlas Intel, and Big Data. But and I'd see you guys cross pollinate, which I love. I love your discussions together, you and Rich and all that. But Jason had a really good article, very interesting piece about how and why polling samples have skewed towards the more cosmopolitan, sort of college grad respondents. Are you seeing something like that of late in terms of the data pools available to pollsters?
Things have changed over time, and the data is always going to be different cycle to cycle. And ultimately what it comes down to is that you have to have an objective view of reality. And that's hard for a lot of people, especially if you live in an ivory tower, or your boss is a Upper West Side lib, or their advertising department takes a ton of money from Pfizer. That's the real challenge for, I think, a lot of these people. But it's not like this scientific method where you collect data, garbage, plug it all in, and out comes some result, and that's it. You got to go with it. I mean, it is an art. Like, I have to play around with weightings. I have to make educated decisions. I have to balance different data sources. I have to try out new vendors, and we're constantly looking at that stuff. I think one of the reasons that we've been more powerful is we've been a lot more hesitant than others leaning into some of these alternative data sources. People have gone 100% into online panels that do have problems. It's like that person is taking a poll for money and trying to do it as fast as possible. And we use some of that data, but it's not great. You got to do a lot of cleansing. And if you already have a confirmation bias, it's really hard to do that accurately. And, we all have our little niche. Quantus is good. I've met Jason. He's relatively new to the field. Rich, we really like People's Pundit. They pull from the voter file. They do a lot of like regional, like hyper targeting, and do other methods that we don't use. Ours is more like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We've migrated some out of we're only 45% landline robodial right now. We still have hundreds of thousands of older people that like to answer our polls. And we've been very careful about our new data. The problem is some of these other people are just like, I guess I got to either go with YouGov or Ipsos. And yeah, like some leftist corporation manages that panel. It's only 50,000 people. At the end of the day, it's not really polling. Yeah. They don't really seem to mind as long as they get the headlines they want. And there are so many different ways you can, it's a bad poll. You oversample Democrats. Somebody cherry picks your data. They like outright lies about what's in it. There's so many different ways in order to insert these biases, but we're not funded by pharma. We're not funded by major corporations. We're funded by subscribers and advertisers. If it doesn't work, we're going to go out of business.
And it's so maddening, even just when you're describing that the ABC poll of Trump being underwater on the southern border.
Yeah, 6 points on immigration. Meanwhile, I have polls where like 64% of people agree that we need to conduct mass deportation operations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's what I mean. How could anyone with any semblance of responsibility to measurement as opposed to manipulation, how could they let that poll be published that way? So guys, this is a huge glaring anomaly here. We can't go with that. I love too how you say it's an art and science, because I guess that's I geek out with polling, is because it uses both sides of the brain. There is a real art to the data, and I dig that. I think that's really
well. It catches people who don't really, being too stodgy and not changing enough is also a problem. In my opinion, that's what happened to Ann Seltzer.
Is that what you think it was?
100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
She just mostly polls Iowa. They've done the same thing year after year. She probably has junior analysts doing all the work for her. She's not weeding through the data herself. And so when she got a result that, quite frankly, she got a result that I think she wanted or expected to see, and shot it over the fence, when it's like, well, no, you're not getting a representative sample of Iowa anymore. It was going to happen at some point, and you weren't looking at other forms of data and questioning your outputs, and that's what happened. Sorry.
She almost seemed a little giddy over the the results. Like, oh, look at me! Like,
I'm in the cool girls club now. Rachel Maddow's
I'm in the
really
cool
gonna love
girls
me
club.
now. Yeah,
Exactly,
exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned the right track, wrong track polling. You've been tweeting on this a bit, and guys, you definitely want to click on the link below and subscribe to Mark's X account. It's awesome. I check it out every single day. But you've noticed that as sort of a supplement to presidential approval, we've got right track, wrong track polling. And you've noted that it's higher than we've seen in the last 20 years. Can you develop that? What are we seeing with right track sentiment?
I mean, that's the trend to follow. It's like the most maligned man in politics is probably not going to have a high approval rating. Although I will say that he's got a higher approval rating of any other national figure that we poll on. And so how's that for the lowest approval rating in 80 years? It's like,
right, exactly.
Okay,
it's not
like,
in a vacuum. Exactly.
Yeah, he's literally beating the Disney Entertainment Company in approval rating. You know what I mean? Like he's doing pretty well.
Can I parentheses in that? That's so true, because we are going through this mass delegitimization right now in all of our public institutions across the board. And again, that's just, nobody's putting it in context, just like you just did. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a war on integrity. That's what the establishment has done. They've gotten so comfortable, robbing from the taxpayers and using every tool of power against us, including all of this focused corporate power. And it's going to be institutional collapse. It's the fourth turning. It's going to happen. I mean, history tells us we're pretty much due. And it's great that Trump is going in there and exposing all this stuff for us. It's great that Doge is at work trying to rebuild the airplane in mid-flight. But at the end of the day, if we can't, convincingly staff the federal government with 1.5 million people who are at least scared or bullied or coaxed into having integrity, then this whole system doesn't work. And we still haven't fixed that problem. And so I don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, voters are getting what they wanted. For the first time, in my opinion, people say, oh, Kamala Harris was a horrible candidate. Well, she convinced 48% of the country to vote for her. Only 30% trust the federal government. 72% are concerned we're living in a police state. 60% thought that all of this Trump conviction stuff was banana republic. I could go on and on and on. This was a referendum on the federal government. Trump comes in and takes a wrecking ball of the federal government. People all of a sudden are happy. So we're setting records week after week with right direction polling. The question is, generally speaking, are things headed in the right direction, or have they gotten off on the wrong track? And so we had, for the very first time in 20 years of polling history, more right direction than wrong track for an overnight reading. That was massive. 48%.
That was back in February, I think.
Late February. Late February. So that was a big one. It's still at 45% today, and it spent 14 consecutive weeks now at 42% or higher. The previous record was half of that, and that was also a Trump term, believe it or not. Yeah. And so at the end of the day, Trump's approval rating doesn't matter. I don't think people are going to abandon him, and we have some more questions in the field that we're putting in today to see what. My advice to him, it would be to accelerate, give them more of this. And my advice to Republicans would be, open your eyes and follow along. Yeah. Because I don't think they're doing what they need to do.
Well, yeah. One of the theories I'm hearing batting around is that all this poll dump, all this negative polling is to pressure the Republicans to try to distance themselves from Trump and try to slow down his agenda and the like. But Tillis is right now is being a little bit of a thorn in the side with another.
With Eagle Ed, yeah.
Yeah.
Give me a reason. Why can't we get that guy? Give me a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you want to hide and run out the clock? It's disgusting. Right. And quite frankly, I don't know. This is just conjecture. I think it felt like to me something happened behind the scenes right around the time that a deal was made for the CR signing, the debt deal getting kicked, because it felt like the tone of Doge changed. Elon maybe got reeled in, the goalposts moved quite a bit. And I understand political pragmatism, and maybe it's Trump's Congress gave me a win. I got to run with it and treat it like a win. I don't know, but what I can tell the Republicans, they're going to win on the generic ballot. If I polled it, I haven't polled it in a few months. It's going to be Republican plus 2 or 3, right? The Problem is that doesn't necessarily convert to pickups anymore, right?
Right,
Exactly. It's not a foregone conclusion. And here's the other thing: nobody polls like Trump. Nobody polls like Trump. I've done some matchups already with JD Vance. And
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
it's early. We got 2 coming next week that are not public yet, and they're big names. And the trend is that the numbers are in the 30s for everybody, right?
Wow.
And it's a ton of caveats. It's 4 years out. But like, we had Stephen A. Smith, this one's public, a complete outsider who a lot of people didn't know, like 47% not sure or something like that on his favorability. It was a really high not sure number. And running as an outsider Democrat, he polled 34% against Vance's 38%. That's a wake-up call. Wow. That it's like the Democrat Party, you can say it's got – our Democrat Party ratings aren't as bad as everybody else's, which is something that the Democrats don't care to tell people. But I think it was 44% last time we ran it. So these people didn't go away. They're still there. They're still Democrats. They are like not as vociferous, and they've ceded, in my opinion, the oxygen to their noisier people who are trying to wrestle for influence right now. But there is a big vacuum for an outsider to come in and say, hey, Democrats, you got to clean yourselves up. You know, you got to be more like Clinton or whatever. Yeah. And we haven't seen that yet. But like, that would be powerful and could really challenge JD Vance, because I don't know if hasn't been on the stage long enough, or there hasn't been enough of the passing of the torch. But Trump built a machine that's very good at getting people to turn out for Trump.
To turn out for Trump, it has yet to translate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm hoping they go McGovern. Democrats go do a 1972 again. We'll see, or a Mondale or something like that. But like you said,
it's going to be an interesting arc for them, right? Because you have Gavin, who's like trying to make inroads with Steve Bannon, and then he's like forced to decry transsexualism, and so like Reddit is ripping him apart and vowing that they'll never let
leadership flips out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's going to be a circular firing squad. A whole lot of people are going to get lake houses, and there will be some establishment pick. That's my call. That's probably what's going to happen.
I love it. You know your politics. That's brilliant. Yeah. That's right. A whole bunch of people are going to get lake houses. That's true. What about the true gender gap here, the astonishing gender discrepancy we've been seeing between men and women in terms of their support for Trump? Men, of course, just across the board came out in big numbers for Trump in November. But there's also, if we drill down further, there's also the discrepancy between married women versus single women. So it's almost like it's much more of a values discrepancy that's getting engendered, as it were. What are we seeing there?
Well, there's a whole bunch of interesting trends, and this is caveated with things are moving very rapidly, especially for 18 to 39-year-olds. Those people voted for Kamala Harris in our polling by a couple of points, which was better than Trump has performed ever, right? Like, those people went like 40 points to Hillary Clinton, and so it's been a complete reversal, right? But even since then, now we hit an 18 to 39-year-old Trump approval as high as 60%. 59% of 18 to 39-year-olds said that Trump was going to usher in a new golden age. So there was a lot of optimism for those people coming into now. I'll say that has abated somewhat, but 18 to 39-year-olds is still Trump's best age demographic, which is pretty surprising because, again, like traditional knowledge would tell you like 15, 20 years ago, the older ones were definitely the more conservative.
And Mark, is not even the traditional. I know exactly what you mean, but it's even, you had back in like 2018, that book, I don't know, it's two British scholars called the Cultural Backlash thesis that argued that all these populist parties that were winning, and at that time here with Trump 1.0 Brexit, Marine Le Pen, all it's, Georgia Maloney, that was all temporary because it was all just a bunch of old white men who hate diversity and multiculturalism and inclusion, and they'll eventually die out and they'll get replaced by the under 30 or under 39 young progressives. And it's actually the precise inversion of that. It's insane.
Yeah, instead they're stuck at home with their wife who's watching MSNBC, right? They're reading their old Tom
Exactly.
Clancy novel,
It's
trying
the
real hard not
boomers.
to listen.
Exactly. It's the boomers that are more inclined. We saw it in Canada, for heaven's sakes, didn't we? Just
Yeah,
last week.
that was
Yeah.
stunning. I would love
Yeah.
to try and recreate that here, but we haven't had a chance yet. So like there's some more stuff going on too, because these numbers are a moving target. And then there's also like subdivision. So the 18 to 39-year-olds are more conservative, but the 30 to 39-year-olds are the ones dragging those numbers up. The 18 to 29-year-olds are dragging those numbers down, but then you probably got 18 to 22-year-olds who are like another offset in the other direction.
Yeah.
But what you see, that there was a couple of things just over the last couple of days we put some tweets out about that really kind of broke this down. And so one of them was how much Trump approval varied by age among gender. And the 18 to 29-year-old men and women were pretty close, but the 30 to 49-year-old just vastly different. Like men and women are like 50 points apart. It's just incredible. And I put it in the video. I called it irreconcilable differences, but like that's a big deal. And then when you break it down by married men and women and age group, it starts to get interesting. So married women under 40 are 20 points Trumpy, but then when they get to 65, they're 20 points Democrat. So it's like
interesting.
Every age group they go up, you know, they get more Democratic.
Yeah.
And that's because their kids have gone away and the luxury beliefs kick in probably. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like the boomer women are different than the Zoomers, let's just say. But then unmarried women under 40 are the most anti-Trump in all of it. They're like 37 points anti-Trump, and they actually moderate as they get older, the unmarried women. So, and then for fun, we layered in pet ownership. and this we did this back in September, but everybody was ripping on JD Vance for the cat lady thing. But it's a real thing. Like,
it's a real thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a
unmarried
distinction
cat
between
women.
Go.
But yeah, they went Harris by 36 points, which was by far the biggest signal in any marriage, gender, pet combination.
That's the cat lady, right?
It's true.
What I heard, I was listening to you a couple of days. Was it with Crowder? Were you talking about like did you actually poll like people who are cat owners versus dog owners, and you saw a discrepancy there?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I got the numbers right in front of me. Like married men dog owners, I don't know why, but this is from September, and it's not Trump approval, it's Trump-Harris matchup. Married men dog owners were 12 points Harris. I don't know why. Married men cat owners were 4 points Trump. I don't know. Married women dog owners, 17 points Trump, like pretty based. That's like golden retriever truck women. I don't know, man. But
yeah, man.
But then the unmarried cat woman, here it is, like 36% Harris. The biggest signal. Wow. Yeah, and unmarried women dog, we're only 15% Harris. So those are like, you know, get a pit bull to keep all the bad men out, like that kind. Yeah, so like it's real. Like I did the poll, like you know, people are welcome to try and prove me wrong, but nobody's going to.
What does Harry Enton say? The numbers are the numbers.
yeah, right. That guy, man, that guy.
Yeah, I know. Slick back hair. It's
but like it's like when you take and like I did it progressively in the file. People can actually. This was the result, like a topic that we covered last night on the stream, even though it's September numbers. But I showed it progressively. Like we started with gender, then we started with married, unmarried gender. You know, then we layered in the pet ownership, and it's the biggest signal. Like that's the news. It's more powerful of a signal than income, than education, than like, you know, pretty much everything except like religion, ideology, and party.
Right.
So something about those cats.
The pet indicator, I guess. Maybe that's your next book, Mark. I can see.
We were calling it the Toxoplasma Gandhi vote. Yeah,
I love it. Oh man! All right, last question for you. Actually, this one's a little bit more serious, though. And that is because I know you've been following this. There was a study that came out a couple of weeks back. It was a rather chilling study that talked about the growing acceptance among leftists in particular with what they were calling assassination culture. And I think this was the Network Contagion Research Institute, NCRI. And they found 55% of left-leaning respondents said it would be at least somewhat justifiable to assassinate President Trump. You've been examining what we might call, I guess, Civil War sentiments for years now. What are you seeing in terms of those? You alluded to it earlier, and I wanted to ask you about that. What do you see in terms of any kind of developments in those sentiments out there?
Yeah, this is the topic. This is an important topic, and I can tell you a lot of people have not pulled on this at all. And it's one of the reasons, like, listen, everybody in the field mostly just does election matchups because that's where the power is. That's where the headlines get generated. Every headline I come up with is almost entirely anti-establishment. And that's because people are pissed off that they've been getting screwed over for so long, right? And so that's why you don't hear a lot of information like this from other people. So one of the questions that we've been asking, and what I'm trying to paint here is an entire context of not just like, oh, red team, blue team, oh, Bush got 100 more hanging chads. Like, no, it's getting violent, and the risk is increasing. So one of the questions is, how likely is it the United States will experience a second civil war sometime in the next 5 years? We've asked that a few times, and it was like about 35%, then 41%, then 43% pre-election. The number's been going up during the Biden presidency. And new numbers back out, it's back under 40 at 39%. And again, it's only 15% very likely, but also only 19% not at all likely. And the only reason it's down is because the Republican numbers have dropped. Democrats, a majority of Democrats still think we're going to have a civil war in the next couple of years. Then we've found all those other signals too, measured different ways than that NCRI. I'd love to do standalone research like that, but we just haven't. Nobody's opened up their pocketbooks to understand if we're going to be shooting each other. But we asked questions like, going into this election, we asked, if Kamala Harris wins, how likely is it that there will be a violent reaction? And then we asked the same thing if Trump wins. And both of them, Republicans by a majority thought that there would be a violent reaction. And with Democrats, it was even higher because they've been, I think, gaslit a little bit about MAGA extremists. Then I think the number was 27% who said that the Luigi Mangione murder was understandable based on like the high cost of health insurance in America. RMG had an amazing one that 28% of Democrats thought it would have been better if the Butler assassin hadn't missed. Like, it's not good stuff. And you say, oh, it's only 25-30% of people. But it's
1 in 3.
Well, we fought they talk about 3% in the Revolutionary War. We didn't fight the Revolutionary War because of 3%. We fought it because of 0.3%, which were the militia people in Boston that shot back at the British. So it's like powder keg, and it's not good. And hopefully that this moderates some. But I think the problem with Democrats, again, Chuck Schumer, like, who's the leader? Who's the adult in the Democrat Party that's going to come out and say, no, we can't do this. It's not the right thing to do. Chuck Schumer tried to be a leader, like, poorly, but tried to be a leader with the debt deal. And Twitter, he gets ratioed every time he posts. People on Reddit want him hauled out by his toes. Never mind the fact that the Democrats kind of like him. They didn't want him to resign. And so it's their loudest voices are in charge right now. And they're trying to, like, LARP Che Guevara. Like, they're trying to LARP. They want to recapture the Weather Underground days or whatever. Pritzker, Walt's saying he's going to fight MAGA people, and people like, who is it? Crockett's Jasmine saying that she wants to hit people with a chair. Like, what? Sick.
Yeah, or she could just hit him with her fake eyebrows, I think, or eyelashes.
Right. Scratch it with the nails.
Scratch with the nails. That's all right. No, it is. The scary part of it, we were talking about it right after Butler was, look, you call a guy a Nazi enough, you call him Hitler enough, and eventually, the logical outworking of that is, well, I don't want to live under Hitler. I'm going to do everything I can to rise to the moral occasion, as it were, and fight back. So it's dangerous. It's only
to increasing political Trump power. That's what it comes back to. Is his approval ratings not very much different than it was first term when we were at this particular point in time. But one analysis I did that was pretty incredible is that I looked at the turnout by percent of voting age population. and then I multiplied that by the actual national popular vote, like percentage for each winning candidate going back to 1940 because of the ABC News 80-year headline. And Trump did a lot better second time out. Well, third time out, right? But the first term, it was a number in the 27%. So he got 20%, 27% of the electorate to vote for him is the way to read that. Got up to 32%. Obama went the other way. He came in like 33 and then went down because people were like, oh, this guy's a socialist and he sucks. Trump has convinced a significantly larger portion of the electorate to vote for him. And the Democrats, like, they had no response to that other than to just like do this. And it's not going to work electorally.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 1,000%. They're doubling down on this 80-20 doom loop, and they just don't have. They're doubling down their craziest, most extreme radical core, revealing what they really are. And in the end, nobody really wants to vote for that. Again, the polling is in a vacuum. Even if we assume the worst of Trump's polling is accurate, somebody pointed out to Chuck Schumer, right? When he had that press conference, and he said, Donald Trump has the worst polling in 80 years. Yes, but Senator Schumer, you're at 17%. That's the lowest of anyone. Polls come and go.
Oh man, no, it's so true. It's like establishment Democrats have their head in the sand. They're trying to ride this out. Establishment Republicans are waiting on bated breath for the very first hint of Trump weakness. They want to dump this guy so fast. You just know it. And then you have like all these other Democrat voices just running amok because, again, what it comes down to is that it's going to be a big Democrat circus, right? Mm-hmm. And you will have been rewarded if you were allowed voice because you will have influence.
Right.
And their deals will get made, and then they'll try and force some establishment candidate, and the Democrats will grumble about it and then still vote for the establishment candidate.
Of course. They always do. There's
the whole other discussion about whether Trump is effective at cracking down on Act Blue or with his election integrity task force. Just a lot of open questions.
Right.
And I mean, like, the Democrats do have an incentive to go extra Democratic. They do.
Yeah.
And we might even see a spark, right? I can tell you that based on my read of Reddit, that the rolling up a sitting judge was not well thought of in the echo chambers. Let's just say that way. And that, Lena Habba said she's going to go after Phil Murphy. Like, there's going to be other very salient examples of this and ways where states might decide that they don't want to play along anymore.
Right.
Where does that put us? I don't
know. Exactly right. Where can people follow you and keep track of real polling in the midst of all this noise?
Real good polling, honest polling. Polling's commoditized, but honest polling is not. Rasmussen_poll, and I'm on Twitter at Honest Pollster. Yes, it was available. And we stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually at 9 p.m. Eastern on Twitter, YouTube, Rumble, Getter. We're pretty much everywhere. So I hope to see people out there. We get real interactive, take a lot of chat, have some fun times. It's a good experience.
Oh, wonderful. I love what you do, Mark. And again, you kept me sane. Everyone's telling our audience is like, thank you, Dr. Steve, for keeping me sane. Well, I needed people to keep me. The counselor needed counselors, and you were one of my counselors. So everybody, make sure you click on the links below to follow Mark's work. I especially love his X feed, at Honest Pollster. His YouTube channel, his Rumble channel. Check it out. I read Mark every single day at the feed. I do. I check in with you every day. I just love your work. So everybody, make sure you subscribe to Mark, and then you will stay up with what's really happening, not the silly nonsense that we see among the bought and paid for polling. So thanks so much, Mark. Very appreciated.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks again.